Hello, and welcome to the Twin Flames podcast. My name is Elizabeth Love, and I'm very glad to be with y'all today. Today's recording is going to be a follow-up to the podcast you just likely listened to recently on COVID-19, Ascension, Twin Flames, the journey, all that stuff, all the chaos that's going on in the world right now. In that series, I interviewed my very good friend Ellen Redd. Ellen has very graciously agreed to join me again, almost as a part two, I guess you would say, of the previous 4 podcasts that went out. We may be talking about things today that will trigger you. So if you start listening and you get upset and you need to stop, just try to make a mental bookmark that this exists, because it's almost certain that at some point you will be ready to hear this information, and it might be useful to you to come back and listen at that point. So, Ellen, girl, thank you so much for getting on the phone with me. I really appreciate it. Wow. What about all this stuff going on in the world today?
Yeah, it's pretty hairy, isn't it?
I don't even. It's every morning I get up. Like, are the UFOs here? What about the murder hornets? You know, what's up with the flying wasps? And you know, what's the flavor of the day today?
Yeah, we're literally living in the Book of Revelations, and I like to kind of use the metaphor that it's similar to the movie Jumanji. You know, how they kind of fall into the story themselves and become the living characters, and that is literally what we're doing right now in the days of Revelation. So we are living, breathing characters within the reality or the simulation of the prophecies that were predicted for this time.
I agree. I mean, well, my spirit guides technically disagree, because I did ask them, hey, y'all, are we in the time of tribulation? And they said no. So I guess they're saying technically we're at least not in that 7-year or whatever it is tribulation period. But as far as in general, living the book of Revelation, absolutely. Nobody could disagree with that.
Yeah, and my spirit guides have been telling me the opposite, but that's okay. I mean, either way, we're going through what we're going through right now in our now moment, which is always now. Right?
Yeah.
So past, present, future are all seeing at the same time, which means that what we're seeing right now has really been prophesized in many ways, whether it's 7 years, whatever. We don't need to split hairs on that, but nonetheless, yeah, it's pretty heavy, I think, for everybody energetically, because we are moving through real treacherous territory, aren't we?
We are, and it's frightening. I'm frightened.
Yeah, it's the COVID thing kind of disappeared, didn't it, right away as soon as we started having these riots, and it's just it kind of seems like obviously it was probably perpetrated, really propagated.
Well, our artificially manipulated mass media turned their attention from the flavor of yesterday to the flavor of today.
Yeah, pretty much what it is. And, of course, it's an election year, and, of course, there's all those issues, you know, with the political agendas and all that other stuff. And unfortunately, there are so many people who live in different layers of consciousness. This is really one of the areas that's causing us to have so much chaos at this time, is that there are people who are in very high vibrating states of consciousness, of unconditional love for all beings, which is our Christos energy. And then there are people who are not in that 5D and higher energies, and so they don't even have access to those Christic codes. And so they are living in the 3D consciousness, which is where, you know, these kind of things that we're seeing lived out in the physical world are happening, because it's 3D consciousness that they're stuck in. And that's the problem that we have. So how we are going to move forward from here is going to be very interesting, because, of course, we can't force our will on others, and those that are in lower states of consciousness, we can't force them to see a higher state of existence or to evolve or to ascend. They have to choose it themselves. And we're at a time where it's Judgment Day. You've got to decide which way you're going, and this window's closing for people to be able to choose to ascend. It's not like we're going to have forever and ever and ever that keep getting chances. There are ordinances in the spirit world, and there are time windows, if you will. I mean, time doesn't exist in reality, but there are windows, space and time, where people are going to have to make a decision. And if they don't, then they're going to fall away. The ones that are ascending are going to ascend into the new earth paradigm, which is the split off that we're going through right now. So it's really a paramount time.
Birth pains. These are birthing pains.
Pardon?
Birthing pains. These are birthing pains. We're going through labor
pains, yeah. Oh, yeah. We're also moving through some really heavy tribal energy and root chakra energy on a collective level, which is kind of also been antagonized by the dark forces with what's going on with these riots. One of the biggest traps that people can get into is to fall in a trap of believing in separation of peoples, because in the higher dimensions and the truth of our soul is that we are one soul having been split into many bodies with many different skin colors and variations of life experiences and all that stuff. We are one soul having many experiences. And one of the biggest challenges that we face as a human race really is to keep getting brought to this tribal energy of splitting the people based on skin color. And it's being used against the people to antagonize them, to cause them to lose their higher states of consciousness and to disconnect from their soul and to disconnect from their divinity. And therefore, it causes them to, it's an implant, a mind control implant, to weaken them, to cause them to feel like they are inferior to another one of their brothers in a different skin.
I see it pretty much the same way you do, Ellen. I would say when you said ordinances, the word ordinances, that really resonated for me. I got an instant download confirmation that there really are ordinances. It's not so much a rule, a regulation, a law. It's a guideline that if you want to do well, you follow the guideline. And if you don't, you don't. And you reap the consequences either way.
Yeah, it's really easy. We have, whether people want to like this word or not, because humans get real triggered over every little simple thing, we have to use words sometimes to translate spiritual knowledge. And so words get tripped up on. God is one of them. But we do have spiritual laws. They govern the entire cosmos. Nobody gets to change that. They are spiritual laws that govern all of the cosmos. And because you're a creator, you can choose anything you want for yourself. But if you choose to be out of alignment of your spiritual truth and the spiritual laws, your spiritual truth is the spiritual laws. And if you choose to be out of alignment with that, then you have to accept just that which returns to you, you created. Therefore, there's no big bad guy in the sky that's punishing you. There's no big bad black man or white man or anybody else that's punishing you. There's no big bad anybody that's punishing you. You're punishing yourself because if you're not living in spiritual law, you're getting karmic consequences to your actions.
I was going to say, that's karma. She's describing karma at the quantum level.
Yeah, and karma is only one of those spiritual laws. But all of the spiritual laws really are law of attraction. So even if you've experienced some kind of trauma, and this is where we have, to be compassionate for one another, because certain peoples have had different experiences than other peoples in this life incarnation, and maybe in a different life incarnation, that person had the same experience at a different lifetime. But on a quantum level, we all have shared the same pains and the same experiences. But some of the triggers, tribal ones, particularly related to your birth peoples and that kind of a thing, they really do trigger a lot of people's pain. It's the pain body that Eckhart Tolle, I don't know if I just pronounced his name right, but in The Power of Now, where he speaks of having that pain body. And when you're in the pain body, it's because you're in your tribal energy, in your mortal existence, in your mortal reality, and you've disconnected from your spiritual reality. And you get caught up in believing that your mortal existence at this particular incarnation is who you really are, when it's not true.
I want to break in 1 second and sort of break it down for the listeners and maybe sort of a bit of a more simple way, because Ellen is getting into some very esoteric truth. And it can be, if this is someone's first exposure or an early exposure, it can be difficult to really follow. So look at things this way. When we as whatever souls incarnate into this physical earth, we sort of basically buy into layers of illusion. As a soul, you really have to buy into layers of illusion in order to be here. You have to accept the illusion that you're an individual walking around in a meat suit. Because at a spiritual level, that isn't really what's going on, but for us in the physical world, that's what seems like is going on. So when we say something like, nothing is separate, everybody's the same, there's an illusion walking around in a meat suit as a person that you are separate from other people, and you are separate from trees and ants and telephones, that they're all individual separate things. At the spiritual level, they're not. And at a really deep spiritual level, there's only one thing, and that thing is God, and we're all God.
Yes, very good. That's a very good way to describe it.
Yeah.
And that
well,
is
Ellen,
really...
I have in my hand a list of everything, sort of the topic list that we covered in the previous 4 podcasts, the one conversation you and I had. And some of the stuff in there, part of the hardest part of this podcast really is going back and listening and then coming up with this topic list. That's a lot of work. So I have the list in my hand, and there's a couple of things on there I really want to bring up and just see if you have a little more depth to go into before we move on to what's going on in the world today that we're really on the phone to talk about, if that's okay
Sure.
with you.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm just going to run down a list shortly, and anything that captures your attention and that you want to go into a little bit deeper, please do.
Okay.
So, some of the things we discussed in our last conversation were Ascension past 4D, so going through 4D to get to 5D, what the intent of, at the time it was the pandemic, but I'll increase that to all the chaos going on in the world right now. What is the intent of that? Let's see, what else? Shadow and generational healing. I'd like to really touch again on 2020 possibly being a union year. And then I guess the last thing would be what is the most effective way we could come up with for people to deal with the chaos right now. So any or all of those that you'd be interested in talking about, I'd love to start with that before we move on to the new stuff.
Okay. Why don't you start with, what was the first question on there?
The first one was Ascension past 4D, how to get through 4D into 5D.
And then what was the next one after that?
The one after that was Shadow and Generational Healing, I believe.
Okay, let's go right there, because that brings us current time to where we're at in facing, what are we in, day 5 of rioting and just horrific things happening all over the country. And, it's tragic because the people who wanted to do peaceful protesting are being really they're being shut down in the midst of their efforts to try to be heard, because there's this handful of people that are in that real low energy. And so, let's talk about a little bit of not only ancestral healing, but tribal healing, because that is part of your ancestral healing. So it's kind of 2 different forms of healing. But, when you get into, again, the tribe, you're getting into your family's experiences on Earth, your generational,
Define how you're using the word tribe for everyone.
Tribe is like your tribe, your tribe. You're born into this family. That's your tribe. You're born into this village. That's your tribe. If you were born in LA, you have that. That's your tribe. Those people. If you're born in a white family, that's your tribe. That your tribal energy is wherever you were born, so you identify with white people. Or you're born into a black family, so you identify with black people. Or you're born into Chinese communist environment. That's your tribe, your tribal energy. And so everybody.
So I think you're defining tribe by person, place, and thing.
I'm defining tribe by tribal energy, which means that when you are born and incarnate into a family, that's your earth tribe. And so you from the moment that you incarnate into the womb of that mother and that family and that life and that city, that you begin to identify and formulate your identity around that being your reality, as opposed to the spirit world, which is nothing like anything any of us humans see. It's very different there. So, but...
Yeah, so the way I believe Ellen is using tribe is if Ellen and I had just met at a cocktail party, it would be whatever my elevator speech is to introduce myself.
Yes, sort of. So yes, and yet really very primitive. It's primitive energy. It's your primitive nature. It's where a lot of this racism comes from, because you get plugged in to being black, or plugged in to being white, or plugged in to be, born in Russia, or whatever it is. You get plugged into identifying with that being your reality, and therefore you're this and that person's that, as opposed to we. We are one. We.
That's what they needed you to say on there. That's the spirit guides kept pressing me to ask follow-up questions. That's what they wanted you to say.
No problem. Yeah, just keep guiding me. Sometimes I get there's so much knowledge here that it's hard to kind of express also, and so I'm doing the best I can to translate it for people. But so when you unplug and set your spirit, you have to unplug from your tribal energy. You cannot ascend if you're plugged in to your tribe. This is where a lot of people have challenges in the ascension process, because they will go through a time where they have to unplug from their families. That's why so many in ascension go alone. This is why Christ went into the cave by himself for a period of time, and Muhammad and all the others. Okay, and anybody really going through ascension has to kind of unplug from everything and everyone in order to connect to God's source. You can't be connected to God's source, be plugged into everything earthly. It just doesn't work that way. You see what I'm saying? So if you're on the path of ascension, which you're facing a time now where you better choose wisely where you're going, because we're going to have a split off here, and it's going to affect every soul, and those that are not choosing are still choosing not to choose. And so
she just nailed it, y'all. It's a choice. It's a choice. Everything has always been a choice. So some folks may not know. I would assume most people listening to the podcast would know this at a certain level, but just in case some folks haven't been exposed to this yet, who you incarnate in it as, which human you chose to be, is a choice. You chose to be that person.
Yeah. And let me just come back to this, because it's right on my mind and it's very important, is that, again, with ascension, in order for you to ascend and go with God, God's source, heavenly dimensions, all that, you have to unplug from the tribe. You can't be plugged into the tribe and ascend. So if you're going in the direction of love, even for your brothers and sisters, you still have to unplug from them and go first with God, because that's the only way that you're going to also be guided in how to move forward in your own journey with your brothers and sisters. So basically you have to unplug from that, which means, in layman's terms, to anybody that's not following there, is that you can't be, I'm white, or I'm this, or I'm that. You have to be, we are one, and therefore I serve God, and therefore I go where God is. You kind of have to detach yourself, not kind of, but you do have to detach yourself from any attachment to your mortal identity. And that includes your race, that includes the religion that you're born into, that includes your skin color, it includes your sexual identity, it includes really any of those mortal, your social class, or what country you're born into. All of those things are nonsense. You have to unplug from that.
She is precisely 100% correct in my estimation, and the spirit guides are confirming this with me. I'll give you a very concrete example. Really, prior to going into union with my twin, and then achieving the spiritual levels on top of that have really changed my consciousness, I was very invested in being myself. I really liked my name, my family, where I was from. I was proud of it. I was very proud of my education, all of the jobs I had. That I was really invested in being me. I was really invested in having things, possessions, property, stuff like that. And I wasn't a bad person, and I was a spiritual person. But I felt like all of those things really defined who I am. Well, going through the shadow of the valley of death and dark night of the soul and separation and then going into union and achieving, whatever I've achieved, I've let all that go. I don't even introduce myself the same way. People around here, they ask me where I'm from because they hear me and they know I'm not from right here in California. But I used to be so proud of the fact that I was from where I am in the South, and it was a big deal. It's not a big deal anymore. There's so many more things that are so much more important than who I thought I was as an individual.
None of that's real. And so you do have a unique energy imprint, and you do have on this earth plane a unique personality that you've formed from your unique experiences in life. But none of that's really real. You're not any of them. You're not a skin color, because in the heavenly dimensions you don't have skin. It's absolute nonsense to argue with one another about skin. Skin is a mortal reality. It's not real, and it has nothing to do with the soul. So the only that has to do with the soul is that we did choose different rays of hue, if you will. Hue is like the colors of the rainbow. So we were created this way by Creator in different hue tones of skin for our physical mortal experience here. And so we did get chosen and agreed to incarnating into certain lines based on those rainbow colors of hue, which is basically just an energetic imprint of the variation of the same one soul. So you will have certain genetic and ancestral experiences based on what you agreed to incarnate into, as far as your race. But in the higher dimensions, that's really not your reality. It was just something you agreed that you were going to come and experience what it's like to be part of this genetic line, and what it's like to this, and what it's like to be that. And by the way, again, we are the same soul. So I am you and you are me, and let's say you're a black person, I'm a white person. Let's just say that. I am you experiencing life in this polar, contrary, opposite experience with white skin, and you are me having this experience in the total contrary, polar opposite experience as the black person in black skin. You see what I'm saying? So we're the same.
I see exactly what you're saying. You are me experiencing life as a soprano, and I am you experiencing life as a baritone.
Very good. We're the same soul. We're just doing the dance in different forms so that it's a full symphony. Exactly. That's a fantastic way to describe it. But
this is the kind of information, Ellen, honestly, that 10 years ago, before I went through all the twin flame journey, would have terrified me. It would have scared me to hear this, because I would have thought, well, that means when I die, my soul, my little individual soul, is going to get absorbed back into this giant cotton candy cloud that is God, and I'm not going to exist anymore. What would you say to address that fear to somebody?
And I would say, no, that's not really true. So I look at it like this: God is a body, right? And in your body, you have trillions and trillions of cells, right? All the cells are unique individual cells within the one body that is God. You'll always be your unique existence in the universe, always. You're never going to lose a unique imprint in anywhere in any timeline in the cosmos, ever. Always unique in the body of God, even though you're you and I'm me, right? But we're one. But you're still a unique version of me. You're your own person, and I'm my own person, and together we're one. It's a quantum physics understanding, but just look at your body itself and how it functions. You've got all these different...
let's blow people's minds real quick. Let's say Ellen's absolutely correct. I'm an individual single cell. She's an individual single cell in the body of God. We can switch places. When we go back to the spirit plane when we transition back to the spirit plane through death, I can switch places with you, and I can experience everything you experience. But I'm still me, but I'm also you.
Yes, and not only that, but I can come back and I can have a different skin color and have that experience, and then I can come back and have a different, financial status and have that experience. And we've been doing this for since forever,
Yeah.
eternally.
Yeah.
So we're eternally expanding, and we're eternally experiencing different things, and we're eternally changing it up for ourselves, and we're eternally, experiencing different variations of life experiences, and not just even on Earth. We have multiple galaxies out there, infinite. So we really have to get ourselves out of this small-mindedness, for one thing. Small-mindedness is a curse. It's a sin. It's a sin against your soul. And it stops you from being able to explore the beautiful, fun experiences of expansion, which is again, infinite. Imagine the joy of being free of all that dumb baloney that we're experiencing right now, and being able to just go out and astral travel into the cosmos and visit different planets every day. I mean, come on, people. We have got to get past this smallness. We're not small. We're gods.
That's a really great point. Ellen, the chaos, what's going on right now? Tell us. Give us your perspective. What, who, what, why, when, where, how, and to what extent?
Okay. Well, it's very complex to some degree, of course, because that's what the matrix is. It's a complex bunch of dysfunction created to make everything that's beautiful ugly, and created to complicate things that would otherwise be simple. And love is a very simple thing. I love you and you love me, and I could give a flying grip less how poor you are or any of that. People just don't understand what love is. They've forgotten the rules of love. And so they break and violate those laws every day, and then they use excuses of why they get to beat you up for it. I get to beat you up because you're a cop and cops are bad. I get to beat you up because you're white and white people are bad. I get to beat you up because you're black and black people are bad. I get to beat you up. I am still whatever I want from you because you're Mexican and Mexicans are bad. People will make any excuses that they can to violate love. They buy into it. And so what's happening right now is you have a handful of elitists in this country that they've been doing this for thousands and thousands of years, the same genetic family lines that have been ruling the earth for all of these years. They've always had the wealth on the earth, and they have been literally systematically genociding people lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, and continuing to gain control of it because they already know they're immortal. And so they've got these things down, okay? But there's also entities that are not physical, that on farm the energy of, because the human being are gods. These other entities, they are more like fourth dimensional beings that don't get to go to the higher dimensions, and they also don't get to have a body, and they attach themselves on the mortals, and they siphon the energy from the soul. And they love racism, they love hate, they love violence, they feed on, and I will say this, there are different types of programs. So they feed on women, sexual energy and sex slavery and that kind of a thing. They feed on men, causing them to fight each other for all kinds of different reasons, greed and that type of a thing. They love to feed on black people to make them feel that they are oppressed all the time, instead of to remind them that they are empowered seeds of God. Empowered seeds of God. But what's really happening is that, they're causing so much chaos and distortion for people that they're triggering people's tribal wounds. And that's what's happening. The tribal wounds are targeted, and those that are not in wholeness with their truth, those that are not in remembrance of their truth, are biting onto it, and it's causing them suffering, and it's also perpetuating suffering and hatred.
Why now? Why is this happening now, today?
Well, for a lot of reasons. One, we are in the Great Awakening, and we have made tremendous leaps and bounds in the last 10 to 20 years in terms of the light banding together, in terms of having and gaining the internet where we can share information at the snap of a finger, in terms of enough souls becoming awakened that we are sharing this information to save humanity. And so we have come a long way, but the darkness doesn't want that threat, for one thing, okay? But secondly, we also have always had these political agendas going on. we're at a time where we have more of a human population on the planet than these elitists have liked to have in the past, for the reasons that when too many people populate, the 100th monkey effect happens, and people start to share knowledge, and then everybody can overcome the elitists in the sense that they can take their power back because they become self-aware and self-empowered. So what they've done in the past is genocide people by the millions, time and time and time and time and time again. And they want to have so many slaves. As long as there's so many, then they can do all the work. But if they get too many slaves, then they start thinking too much, and they get too smart, and they start helping each other. And they don't want that threat for another reason. There's many things going on here because there are multiple layers of reality. So on the third dimensional consciousness, we're dealing with political issues. If you want to just bring up the third dimension, Trump just started to have these conversations and to insist that China paid us back for a 100-year-old debt with the tariffs and all that issue with China. What was that, 2 months before COVID was released, supposed to start paying it back or something like that? It was a real close time frame there. And that was a 100-year-old debt that had been sitting in the back burner, and nobody was really pushing for it or anything like that. And Trump finally insisted to do that. That created an issue. We've got, I got to take a breath here. There's so much. The
spirit guides have given me, it's not really a question. I guess it's more of a statement to throw out and see how you resonate with. What's going on in the world today with the COVID and with the riots and with the economic collapse and all the things that are going on? It's because we're going in the right direction. We are doing the right thing, and this has come up as a large mountain to get over because we are going in the right direction. So this is trying to act like a roadblock to stop us because we've done such a good job.
Well, there is that. We've been doing a good job, those of us that are at least the light workers, okay? But that's still a small percentage of the population, unfortunately. And in addition to that, yes, we are going in the right direction that way. But the dark agenda that we're dealing with is so much bigger than human perspective because it's beyond. When you get out of your body and you go into the higher dimension, you look at Earth like it's this little teeny tiny piece of sand. The whole entire planet is like a little teeny tiny piece of sand in the midst of an ocean of all that is beyond this Earth perception. Does that make sense?
When you said that, Ellen, I had a flashback to childhood. Early on Sunday morning, before we even had to eat breakfast and get dressed to go to Sunday school and church, this program would come on television called Big Blue Marble. And what I saw when you were talking was the intro, whatever, segue into Big Blue Marble, where they kind of zoom in. They start with this pinpoint Earth, and they zoom in, and then at the end of the program, you got a big Earth in front of you, and they zoom out. That's exactly what I saw when you were talking.
Yes, exactly. And that's who you are. You are that giant being that can look down at Earth in that little tiny speck of sand. That's who you truly are as a soul. So to get caught into the Earth paradigm where you're this little itty-bitty human looking at the big, giant cosmos, well, you kind of have to step back for a minute and get the other perspective so that you can stay balanced. So these other beings that are on the dark agenda, they are giant also. They can look at Earth and it's very key to them. But they also don't get a physical body, and they don't like that. We all like the physical body. We get to touch each other and hug and kiss and taste food, Well, those that don't get the human body, some of them never did because they never wanted to choose the right path, and some of them did and lost it. And there are entities that just don't get the body, but they can feed on yours if you allow them to.
They're parasites.
They're parasitic. They're also, like I said, they're giant entities too, and they've been manipulating humanity for a very long time. That's the stuff that David Icke talks about a lot. And a lot of maybe the way that he presents it, some people won't resonate with because a lot of the images might bother people's psyche or whatnot. But the beings they're very large. So for them to be able to cause manipulation on this planet is really not difficult for them. there's also very large light beings there and very, angelic beings that are in this galactic battle for humanity. We are the centerpiece of the entire cosmos right now, and everybody's been rooting for us, and yet we've been in this cycle for so long because of the Earth mission. What we came here to experience, and what we are battling to save the souls of those that are, needing to ascend now.
David Icke is a perfect example of something that you said in the previous podcast, which is, I'm paraphrasing, going from 3D to 4D to 5D. It's so easy for some people to get stuck in 4D. So I believe David Icke is one of those folks that is stuck in 4D. Now, it may well be he's fulfilling a mission to get information out there that simply nobody else was saying for years. He really was the only one, or the only one with an audience that was saying it. But I believe, personally, I feel like David Icke has gotten stuck in 4D, and he's, I don't know, I don't do prophecy, but it doesn't look like he's likely to make it to 5D in this incarnation.
I'm not going to say either which way on that one, because I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I just think that he happens to have the soul mission, be that one forerunner who is willing to put himself out on the line to talk about these, because A, he has the knowledge of it, and B, he has already been chosen for that role. So he is a way shower. And as a way shower, he wouldn't be able to handle that if he didn't have that 5D energy and that 5D knowledge. I just don't think he would be able to handle it. So either which way doesn't really matter. And like I said, sometimes some of the presents it might be, it's really hard to translate this kind of understanding and knowledge into the 3D human world. There's many ways. Let me
rephrase briefly say what I said in a different way. There's such a vast difference to me between a David Icke and an Ellen Red, because an Ellen Red can dip into the 4D anytime. You can go down to 3D. You can go up to 5D. It's under your conscious control.
Yeah.
Perhaps not so.
I hear what you're saying, and I kind of see what you're saying too, and I see where you're going, why you feel that way, and I'm not in disagreement really. I just
let me tell you specifically why I'm harping on this, and I don't want people to think I'm getting down on David Icke's case. I'm not. What I believe I'm trying to point out is that it's so easy to get trapped in that 4D, like you said yourself. There comes a point when it's not useful any longer, and it's scary for people to contact. For people listening to this podcast, if you don't know who David Icke is, Google it. And then you'll start listening, and it's going to kind of freak you out, because he sounds certifiably mentally insane, a lot of the stuff, but the man is not. He's not insane.
Yeah, it sounds insane, and some of the images that he presents in his work can look a little scary. I mean, it's all biblical stuff. It's all been in the Bible. It's all been written in our hieroglyphs all over the world from the beginning of time. The Mayans talked about this stuff. Every single religion, every culture has always talked about it. But his images maybe bother people or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. It's esoteric knowledge. It's knowledge of other things that are beyond human, that live in other dimensions and other realities, ETs and that type of a thing. And it's all a perception thing, and the psyche is so sensitive as a human because, again, you come and you incarnate into your tribe, and then you get your veil on, and pretty soon you start to really believe that your identity is this human, but you've forgotten all of your star ancestral. You want to talk about ancestral? You forgot your own star essence. You forgot that you're a star. You forgot that you came from the stars. You forgot. I mean, there's so much brilliance out there that we have.
And so we're not getting on your case by telling you forgot, that you knew this already and you forgot. If this is new information to you, we're not fussing at you. Well, the thing is, like I said earlier, you have to buy into layers of illusion in order to incarnate into this world. And, what Ellen's done is, to some extent, what I've done is stripped off some of those layers of illusion. And you have to go through some scary ones before you get to the really good ones.
Well, what I did instead of that is I unplugged from everything illusion, and I went straight to God. And when I got to Source, I saw many other layers and dimensions and traveled around and that kind of a thing. But I just unplugged from my tribe. I unplugged from everything on Earth. I literally unplugged all of my circuits. You have circuits that are plugged into everything that you put energy into. And you have to get to where you unplug from all of those things. Most people don't want to do that because they love their cars and they love their house and they love their spouses and they love their children and they love their family and they love their college degrees and all these titles that make them feel important. And until you can unplug from those things and go to God, you cannot understand who you are, what your truth is, or what you're here for, period. You just can't.
Ellen is so correct. And Ellen, you kind of inadvertently just tell people how to get into union with their twin.
In terms of getting with God first?
In terms of the unplugging.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true. I mean, all of that's connected because until you go to God, you can't really get to your twin anyway. You know, I mean, who do you think made you and your twin? People are so funny. And I'm not making fun of anybody. I'm just laughing because we, as humans, we get goofy sometimes, really. And so we have to laugh at ourselves, too, okay? I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at us because I've had my many goofy human experiences, too. But so when you unplug from that and get into higher consciousness, then, you know, your whole world changes. But what I do want to say before we move on to any other topic is that, you know, to recognize and understand when you look at information, like say you're going to go look at David Icke's page or whatever.
Let me stop a second and spell that for people because some people may not have ever heard of him before. It's I-C-K-E, David, D-A-V-I-D, Icke, I-C-K-E. He's an Englishman. He's written a lot. He's published a lot. He's banned. So don't try and share any of his material on Facebook. They won't let you do it. But
well, try if you can.
If you want.
But yeah, David Icke, and so all I'm saying about him and why I brought him up, and I think a lot of people that are listening are light workers. They're probably part of the Galactic Federation of Light and all these other groups, and really they're saying the same thing. It just sounds cute when you say light versus the way that David presents it. So when you go there, no matter where you go, no matter what the information is, try to keep an open mind and you know, an open heart, and then you can use your own discernment. See, you know, it may come across as funky for you, and you're not ready to look at what it's about, and that's okay. You don't really have to either, but just remember to keep an open mind, because, again, you cannot ascend if you don't move through lots of layers. It's not just layers in the fourth dimension. There are layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of conscious grid systems within the third dimensional reality in and of itself. So our work is really cut out for us in breaking through the matrix. So, but anyway, when you look at it, just to know to keep an open mind and not to let the images bother you, because some of them are a little, you know, strange, but it's not necessarily like that. Again, everything really in the etheric world is more of a vibration. So it's not so much the images that you're seeing, it's a feeling, a vibration. Don't get caught up on not liking the images of the pictures that he presents, beings that look like alligators or whatever. Don't worry about that. Just feel what he's saying in terms of the beings and the energies and that kind of a thing. And it helps you to understand another layer of reality that's coexisting with us we are multi-dimensional beings. So for me, I've gone to Source, then I took all of what I saw from that Source creator and integrated those light codes and Source all the way back down to Earth again. So I have multiple dimensions of realities existing at the same time, and so do you. And when you become conscious of it, then you can become a conscious creator, and that's where your power comes. Until then, you're seeing your power everywhere, and you're helpless, you're suffering.
She's right. She's right, y'all. I want to stress again, as we both have said on this podcast and on the previous podcast, it's important to have the information. It's not helpful to put blinders on and pretend that this stuff doesn't exist. It's also important not to get trapped there. It's so easy to get trapped down a rabbit hole with the fear form. We said that on the last podcast. So,
and that's totally the case even for what's going on in the 3D reality right now. And I really want to, I'm glad you said that too, because I really want to make sure that the people listening to this understand, no matter what skin color you are, if you allow your spirit to plug itself in to the tribal energy of war and hate and racism and violence and all of that right now, you are choosing to stay in the old war paradigm, which will not just stay like it's been in the past, thousands of years. It will get worse because we're in a split-off. It's going to get worse for those to stay in that paradigm. So if you are, listening to this podcast, and no matter what your background is, no matter where your family's from, no matter how much you've suffered, even if people have treated you bad from different races, or even if you've been raped or any of those things, if you stay in that energy of not being able to move through forgiveness and not being able to get balanced in yourself where you remember that we're one soul, then you're going to end up going in the other direction. It's going to be very unpleasant for those that go that direction. So I would encourage everybody to do whatever kind of healing work you need to do. Energy healing, you can do ancestral healing, you can contact me or Elizabeth. Either one of us can work with you on those kind of things, but you really need to work through the energy of and especially your tribal energy and your ancestral energy to heal the wounds of the souls of the people in your family line, your hue color, whichever hue that you were born incarnated into. Do the healing energy for yourself and for your family line to assist all of them to end the suffering, because otherwise what's going to happen, it continues to perpetuate, and there are generational curses, and there are ancestral curses, and there are races on the people right now, and the only way to break those curses is for us to choose the other path of healing and ascension. So if you're one that's inclined to do the healing work, then I would strongly urge you to do some specific work, especially right now on tribal healing and on healing your ancestral karmic healing for your family line, no matter what generation, no matter what race you are. It's so important to do that right now.
She is exactly right. I mean, I like to debate with people sometimes, Ellen, but you keep nailing it. When I was younger, well, you do, because you know what you're talking about, and I think people can hear them. When I was younger, I was so touchy. I was so sensitive. People would say something about my race, my background, my part of the country where I'm from that y'all can hear in my voice, and I would get my feelings hurt. I would get rageful, and I would say things in my head because I was polite, to people. Typically, I wouldn't fuss with them, but in my head, I'd be like, "Who do you think you are to tell me X, Y, Z?" So right. I would say it is certainly possible and probably likely that someone is going to be listening to this and get triggered and say, "Who are y'all to be telling me that I need to heal my ancestral DNA?"
Right. Right.
So
you owe me this.
It may be in that. Let me. So folks that may be having those thoughts come up or those feelings come up, that's a trigger. Triggers are gifts. They are terrible gifts. Nobody would want them. It's like getting coal in your stocking. But they really are gifts, and that's showing you things that need to be healed. And it took me decades to heal a lot of my ancestral generational DNA, place locale, because people look down on my part of the country. That's flyover country. It's the red state, And when I was younger, that really, really hurt my feelings and made me angry to hear stuff like that. Well, that was a trigger that I needed to heal. And I like to think it's healed now. I haven't had anybody call out any particular physical or personal characteristic of mine in years and have it trigger me.
Right, and there's a couple things related to healing that I think might help anybody that is getting triggered or that really does still carry a lot of hurt from that ancestral energy or from their tribe that they're born into, their people, their families, the sufferings that their family has gone through.
What I did is I stopped there for a minute because I felt like at some point people were going to hear what we were saying, and some of them are going to get triggered, and that's terrible.
No, I'm glad
but it's good. That's what needs to happen.
Yeah, I'm glad you stopped there. And so I was going to say that one of the parts of healing is to hold space. So you can bring this back in, okay? Hold space for your, it's okay that you hold space for yourself and for your family and for your generation and for your tribe and for your color of your people, but you also want to be able to, after you've given yourself the time to heal there, if you continue to stay there, then you get stuck in that energy and you can't heal. That's the problem, is that, you know, like, yes, so for me, here's how I healed, and I went through my own kinds of traumas, lots of different things I went, rapes and all that stuff. And especially rape kind of has the same kind of energy as racism. It holds you in this real, you know, heavy, you're justified to feel angry for the things that happened. Yes, you are. And so for me, I was justified in my pain. I was justified in it. Of course I felt horrible being raped. It was a terrible thing. And it was very stuck there, and I was stuck there for a lot of years, you know, decades. And but the thing is as long as you're still there, you can't heal. So even though you had a reason to feel the way that you felt, let's say, you know, you got raped, you have a reason to feel the way that you feel. As long as you are still attaching yourself to that without gaining the lesson and without rising above it and moving beyond it, you really can't heal. You're stuck there. You've got to move your focus. You have to find the blessing, and you have to forgive the people that maybe even never asked for forgiveness. That's a really hard thing to do, but you have to do it as a soul if you yourself want to ascend to the higher dimensions. And if you want to live in accordance with spiritual truth, forgiveness, you know, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. It's not our place to be judging any other souls, because we don't know what their soul contracts were with the divine. And also, if you want to take it away from you know, the religious tone that was there in that statement, and just look at it from a law of attraction state, you know, perspective, as long as you're holding on to anger towards somebody else, the karmic universal laws cannot work for you. You have to let it go and give it to the universe, for the universe to deliver justice to he who harmed you. As long as you're holding on to it, you have energetic attachment and cords, and you are trying to hold power over the other person and anger over the other person, then the universe cannot deliver them their justice. So as long as
she was telling y'all how to go into divine union with your twin. The last 10 minutes that she has been speaking, that's what she's been telling y'all how to do. Identify.
Everything I'm saying has to do with you getting into union with your twin, every single bit of it, because it's all part of your soul journey, and it's all connected to your own healing and to your own soul, which therefore brings you in union with your twin.
It's fear, rage, righteous indignation, sorrow, pain. On any topic, on missing your twin, on being angry about the COVID, on being angry about the riots, whatever. It's all the same thing.
Being plugged into your tribe will keep you from your twin. You want to be with your twin. You want to have that divine union. You have to undo from even your parents, undo from everybody, and get where God is first, and get all that energy healed with your twin, and then come back to your tribe together and show your tribe how to heal properly. That's really what your soul mission is.
She's right, and y'all don't need help from anybody to do that. Every single person on this planet that's on this journey incarnated in with all the tools they need to succeed on their own. The value in having someone like Ellen, myself, whoever, we can speed up the process.
Yeah, and because my codes are active, all of my Christic codes are active, and I've gone through the twin flame journey or whatever, I'm able to see. I see clearly. I don't have those blockages that maybe people do have that they can't see. So sometimes it helps to have an outside person to be able to see that, especially one that's gone through the journey, to move you through it. But she's correct, and you already do have these gifts. So, you know, I mean, however a person needs to get there, they're going to get there. I mean, for me, I read books, I researched, I spent years, decades in counseling. I did whatever I had to do to kind of work through my soul, and it doesn't matter. Whatever you have to do, do it. But just know that, wherever you're at, wherever you're guided to, follow it. It's for your soul.
Your soul brings you what you need when you need it.
Yeah. Ask and ye shall receive, and follow the promptings, because sometimes you will be guided to certain people. The divine works through all of us. So sometimes you will be guided to certain people to give you one extra code or one extra, gift, or to help you unlock one you just didn't know how to unlock, or how to overcome, one hurdle that you didn't know how to overcome, or whatever it is. It's all good. We're all here to help each other. And at the end of the day, it really is about your love and your happiness and your joy and you being able to live into. It's all for you, for your own happiness. So if you're not happy in any area, it's because you are living out of accord with your own soul.
She's right. She's right. At the soul level, is what I've had downloaded to me, and then it's I've talked to a number of people and they've agreed. I don't believe I've talked to you about it. Is at the soul level, humans have thoughts, feelings, emotions, and they take action. The soul isn't like that. The soul really only has feeling. It doesn't take the feeling and emote from it. It doesn't have a thought that leads to the feeling. It's just the feeling. When the soul is, or when you're in contact with your soul and you can feel what your soul's feeling, really the only feeling a soul is able to feel is something like a benevolent neutrality. That's the best phrase I've been able to come up with to translate spiritual truth into human language. So that may not be the best description, but it's one that people ought to kind of understand. It's not joy. It's not sorrow. It's I'm okay. Does that resonate with you?
On a soul level, yes, your soul is a knowingness. It's an all ever-present knowingness that all is well, and then that you're eternal. It's an all-present knowingness and beingness. Is that what you're asking?
Well, the question kind of was if the soul is only able to feel one feeling and it feels it at all times through all layers of creation, it's just benevolent neutrality. It's a sense that all is well. It's not joy. Your soul doesn't walk around in giddy joy all the time. It's not sorrow. Your soul doesn't crawl around in deep sorrow all the time. That's your physical body. That's your conscious mind. The soul only feels benevolent neutrality.
Yeah, it's an ever-present beingness in all things, and it has no judgment really about whether it's right or wrong or any of that. It's just like an observation state of all that is. And yet there's this, essence of love and eternalness there, which is your truth. The more you can keep peace, especially right now, but always, the more you can keep peace in your soul and not allow anything in the world around you to take away your peace from you, the more power that you have. The moment you lose your peace, you're out of touch with your soul.
That's really sort of what I would say to anyone who heard anything we said previously or whatever and got triggered.
Yeah.
Triggers are a terrible gift, but they are a gift. So if you hear something and it triggers you, go into that, explore it, contemplate it, pray on it, meditate, whatever. Get to the bottom of it so you can let it go.
Yeah. And it's not asking you to not love yourself, your family, your tribe, your people, your experiences, your past, your generation, any of that. It's just asking you to unplug so that you can find that peace within yourself, so that you keep that peace within yourself, so you can stay balanced in your truth as a soul. The moment you start getting angry and hate, and rage, jealousy, and triggered, and all those things, you are falling into the darkness plan. It feeds on that energy and it takes you away from your soul, and you will suffer when you do that. You will suffer, and you'll cause other people to suffer.
I'm not going to say the next thing I'm going to say to be a square. I'm not saying it from a holier than thou or overly righteous position, but I do want to point out, and Ellen, let me know if this resonates for you or not. Substances that alter consciousness, particularly the ones that are harmful, have entities attached, and that can block you from ascension if you really overdo it on that. And I don't say that to get on anybody's case and say, hey, y'all need to quit drinking and smoking and eating meat or whatever it is. You could come up with a list of thousands of things in order to get your energy right typically people will let things like that fall by the wayside because they no longer serve their highest and best.
Yeah. They can be very, very useful for you to tap into other states of consciousness. So there is an element of where it can assist you in your journey. A lot of people even get addicted to things like pot, and I know they say you can't be addicted to it, but they get addicted to go there in order to feel good, which basically pulls you away from your own, facing your own self. And also, even pot, even though it's a plant medicine, and it has its purpose, and it can very much be used for your good, but a lot of people tend to use it to cover up their pain. And what happens is it takes you away from the dream state. So when you go to sleep at night, you don't dream, and when you don't dream, you lose your spirit. So it's like you get stuck in a time warp in the etheric realm, sort of. So you want to be careful if you are using it. And I'm with Elizabeth, in the sense that the ones that are not natural are even more harmful for you. And part of it's because they did it on purpose to take you away from your soul.
Do you think? Did they do it on purpose to calcify your pineal gland so your third eye don't work?
Yes, and those chemicals have many different things going on with them that are designed specifically to cause you to behave certain ways, and it can cause people to become in a psychosis state, and then they're more susceptible to mind control programs. So it's all kind of working against you in a very devious plan. So you do want to be very careful about it. But if you're going to use them, do it with the intention of healing, and specifically better go with the ones that aren't created in a lab. If it's been created in a lab, it's not natural. And if it's not natural, it goes against nature, then it goes against you because you're part of nature. So then try to stick with the ones that are natural, and then use the intention for healing purposes. And, there's no harm in expanding your consciousness. Mushrooms are fantastic for you. They help you to expand your consciousness, and they help you to heal your body. There are many healing properties, but work with a shaman or a healer or somebody, and don't overdo it, and be careful and use your judgment and all that. And don't tell anybody that I said to go do drugs.
Well, the thing is, if you take the shrooms or drop the acid without trained help, without a shaman or a guide, you're just partying, and you're going to hurt yourself. Don't do that.
Yeah, just use your senses. Make your own decisions for yourself, but know that if you get caught in that mindset of I can do whatever I want, I can party and whatever. And trust me, I was all the way through my ascension. Long after I met my twin, I was puffing on a pack of cigarettes a day and drinking pounds of booze. And I didn't really do a lot of other drugs, but I drank and smoked and drank coffee all the way through my ascension until just a few years ago. And so, there, even then it had its purpose. And then my soul said, enough is enough, and now you're done. But the sooner that you can release yourself from those, the better. So just know that somewhere along the way in your ascension, you're going to have to give those things up. You can't get in union with your twin when you're doing those kind of things to your body, and therefore your body temple, which is part of where your soul lives, which is part of where your twin lives too, because your twin is your soul. So you're sitting there doing those things to your body, you're harming your one beloved that you say you love so much.
I want to take a moment and repeat something that I said a few minutes ago. There are people, I'm sure, listening to this podcast right now who are getting triggered by what we're saying. Oh, but I'm so spiritual, but I still smoke cigarettes. Oh, I'm so spiritual, but I still eat meat. Well, that's fine. Everyone has a different threshold. And I'll say, and I may cut this out, I'm not sure, but Ellen and I both know people, through what we do that appear to be at very high levels of ascension, but they are using substances or they are engaging in activities that are they're only hurting themselves. They're holding themselves back. So, like with anything that triggers.
Right. But it's okay. I mean, it doesn't make them less intelligent or less ascended. It just means that
not at all.
It just means that at somewhere in their journey, that the truth is that those things aren't good for them. And if they really love their soul, then they're going to want to evolve more. And that's okay if you're not there yet, because it's a lot of work that we're going through. We're going through so much right now. So be easy on yourself, but just know that along the way, those things, you want to do it with the right intentions, and just keep in your consciousness that you're going to try to be better to yourself every day, and then allow the Spirit to guide you through it. When it's time for you to quit, you're going to quit. And, hopefully if it's something that's harming you, then you do it sooner. But, you have to make those choices yourself. I would have been probably still smoking cigarettes and drinking to this day if the Spirit didn't completely guide me to stop doing it. And part of the reason why was that I was suffocating myself, and I didn't even realize it, because the drugs that they put in those cigarettes were numbing my body, feeling the horrendous damage that I was doing. And I flatlined 4 times, and light beings had to save me. So I would have probably still been continuing to do it in all of my ascension and all of my knowledge and everything else, had I not been guided not to. So just don't be too hard on yourself, but know that along the way somewhere those things are, they're going to get washed continuing to ascend, because you can't really ascend with those things. Those are attachments. They are. You're attached to anything in earth. It's an attachment. Anything. So, that's why a lot of people struggle with ascension. You got to let go of everything, really, in a lot of ways.
People come to me, not every day, but every other day, really, and they likely go to you every other day or more, Ellen, and send me a private message out of nowhere and say, Elizabeth, I saw you on Facebook. Can you tell me how to cut cords with? And then they'll say my twin, but really what we're talking about here is how to cut cords with things that no longer serve your best and highest. Do you get those? Hey, how do I cut cords with my twin all the time, like I do?
Yeah, all the time, and a lot of them are kind of confused about what it means, which I understand. This stuff is confusing, and some of it really you have to just experience. And you can't, you can come to people like myself and May Elizabeth and get some support there, but some of it can take time to work through, depending on where you're at in your own consciousness evolution. And you can't and you shouldn't try to push yourself past where you're at. You'll drive yourself crazy if you're constantly trying to push yourself beyond where you are. It's where you are where your power is, and it's where you are where the Spirit will speak to you about what you need to do right now in your own specific, unique journey. So even though we're giving you some information here, you're still having your own unique journey, and you're still going to have your own experiences, and you still have your own timelines. And so don't worry too much about that. Just know that, you want to stay in a state of self-love in the now moment. And that's really where your power is, and everything else kind of unfolds from that perspective.
She's right, y'all. And I want to pause a second and say to folks listening to the podcast that perhaps are not as well versed in the spiritual stuff, haven't spent decades and decades researching it. So some of this may be very new material to you. What Ellen and I are not saying, correct me if you disagree, Ellen, but what Ellen and I are not saying is you must quit smoking, quit drinking, quit doing drugs, eat vegan, whatever, meditate 50 hours a day in order to go into union. That is not what we are saying in the least, right?
Right. Well, to some degree, yes. Everything's in balance, so and everybody's somewhat unique. But as long as you're doing harmful things to your body, I don't know any real twins, and I say real because there's lots of different versions of that construct, and there are different twins according to your vibrational frequency. But I don't know any twins that are in the highest vibrational frequency that smoke cigarettes, and myself included. I was not allowed to come into union while I was doing that. So it doesn't mean hurry up and quit. You follow your soul, and whatever's, it will unfold for you. But your soul knows what you're going to need to do in your own journey to heal. Smoking or drinking alcohol to feel good, is usually a cover-up of a sign that you haven't healed your shadow. And so, it's a very strong indication that you still have healing to do. And as long as that's there, it interferes with love. Addictions 1,000,000% interfere with the twin flame union. So if it's an addiction, it's a very big problem for you. Hate me today, love me tomorrow. But that's the truth.
I'm giving you space to have more things to say about this if you need to.
You're so funny. I think I'm pretty good on that. I almost feel like I've overwhelmed, people with all this content, because this is a lot of heavy knowledge and a lot of work and things like that. But again, every soul is unique, so you have to work things in your own journey, and really, even to get through healing addictions, you kind of have to go through your family chart and stuff first. There's so much there that some people's circumstances are different than others, and it's all somewhat unique too. So
maybe what I need to do for this series is go back to the at the beginning where I came in and introduced you. We had the music and everything, and give people a trigger warning right there. We may be talking about things today that will trigger you. So if you start listening and you get upset and you need to stop, just try to make a mental bookmark that this exists, because it's almost certain that at some point you will be ready to hear this information, and it might be useful to you to come back and listen at that point.
We encourage you to keep an open mind and an open heart in all things, which really is a commandment, if you will. We were asked to always stay open like a child in order to receive the spiritual knowingness. So that's part of living a righteous life and staying pure to the spirit. So keeping an open mind and an open heart in all that you experience is very important. That doesn't accept everything that comes. You were given the discernment for your own good, so use it. But keeping an open mind and an open heart allows you to receive things that maybe otherwise you wouldn't have known too. So you stay open and use discernment, and that's how you balance yourself and stay out of trouble. The second you start to close your mind, you lose blessings. And the second you close your heart, you lose blessings. So, keeping yourself open can give you blessings, but then as you're open, you just stay using discernment. It keeps you in a good balance of receiving blessings and still being able to use your own judgment for whatever it is that you need to do for your own soul.
It's a gut check. Do a gut check. If you hear one of us say something, or anything, anywhere, under any circumstances, check your gut. Everybody carries the stress somewhere differently. Some people carry it in any chakra can carry this, but most people know what gut check means. So listen to your intuition. Gut check. Is what you're hearing, feeling, thinking, seeing resonating or not? Try to hold space for the fact that maybe it doesn't resonate right now. In fact, maybe it triggers you right now, but at some point in the future, it may not trigger you, and it may really make a lot of sense at that point.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we're multi-dimensional beings, that when you're in a third dimensional state of consciousness, things that are fifth dimensional or fourth dimensional sound ludicrous unless you have an open mind and an open heart. And then when you get in the fifth dimensional perspective, things that are in the third dimension sound ludicrous. So it's really interesting how you have these different aspects of yourself, and at the same time they're all coexisting at once. And when you can get yourself balanced, then you can stay in a so instead of being in third dimensional consciousness trying to find my 5D, I'm in my 5D, bringing that 5D or higher onto the earth plane. So I'm more living in a state of my high soul here instead of reaching for a high soul. I brought the high soul here with my 3D person. Does that make sense?
It does. Looking at something that triggers you from that high soul perspective, from a 5D perspective, makes one of the verses of the Bible really seat home to me, really come home. It's no weapon formed against me shall prosper. I'm sorry, I don't remember the chapter and verse where it is, but that's in the Bible. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. Well, you look at a statement like that from the 3D perspective, and it doesn't make any sense. Anybody could walk up on you at any time carrying a switchblade and kill you. Looking at it from a 5D perspective, it doesn't matter.
Yep. You're
because no weapon formed against you can prosper.
Well, that's because you remember that you're that giant being looking down at this little itty tiny piece of sand. So, and when you remember that you're eternal, and I know that even when you say that to people, they still don't understand sometimes because they don't have the remembrance of coming out of body or whatever. So it sounds nice, but they aren't really sure. But I assure you that you're eternal. And so, you don't have to worry about all these other things. They're really just illusions. And when you stay in that, higher vibrational energy and in the energy of love for all, you can't be harmed. So that's one of the promises that was given to those that live in accordance with spiritual law. And there's so many reasons why these things were written for us and why they're true. And if people just understood that it's not a religious thing, it's a love thing for your soul because you're loved and more than you'll ever know.
She's right. And my spirit guides have requested that I make a public service announcement for everyone listening to this podcast. Unfortunately, sometimes, particularly on social media, you may come into contact with someone who says that they are a light worker or whatever, and that you have a curse on you, and that you need to give them X amount of dollars in order to remove the curse. Ellen, take it away. Tell them what to do.
Well, okay, that's a tough one because a lot of people do that and they're full of crap and they're just trying to take advantage of you and things like that. Although it's not necessarily untrue. There are curses. There are generational curses. That's the work that we're doing to heal. We're healing, ancestral karma, which can be a curse. We're healing generational curses. If you grow up in a family that's got a lot of poverty in them, there are some curses. You want to call it a spell or whatever. And I know some people in the light worker community don't like that. But again, you really have to use your discernment because there are people that are going to take advantage of you by saying those kind of things, and it's going to scare you, and you shouldn't be ever working on somebody that's using fear tactics to get money from you. It's okay to pay somebody some money to give them an equal energy exchange for helping you, especially when they have very valuable knowledge for you. But there are people that are going to manipulate it, and one of the best ways for you to determine, whether it's somebody you want to work with or not is if they're trying to use fear tactics to get you to work with them. You have a curse, I'm going to help you. Well, if it's a fear tactic and they're trying to inject that on you, that's your first sign not to go there. It doesn't mean that there isn't some truth in having some generational curses, if you want to call it that. And I do use that term sometimes too, but not as a fear thing, just as in the sense that we are doing healing in our ascension, and we are going to be doing it for many, 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 many years, even after our Earth incarnation. And so we do have a lot of healing there, curse if you want to call it that, but it's generations and generations and generations of false programming that has damaged the souls of all of our ancestors, including ourselves and our future generations. And so, but if they're using fear, run. If they're using manipulation to get you to work with them, run. Those are traits of the ego. That means the mischievous spirits are there, and it's not going to be in your best interest unless you choose to do it. And if you do, you might have a lesson there that you have to learn, or whatever it is. Again, use your own guidance system on that. Even in working with people, sometimes I've worked with people that were psychics in my past, and they weren't really that good, but it was still a good experience for me. So, just use your discernment always.
She nailed it. It's gut check. Check your gut. Are they using fear and intimidation, bullying, threats?
Guilt you into it or those kind of things.
Well, so Ellen, my twin just walked outside, and he let me know that we're going to need to go somewhere in a few minutes. So probably we need to start wrapping this up. Thank you again for coming. What you're saying is so valuable to people, and I think this is likely an episode people may want to listen to over and over again because there's so much information condensed in it. It's going to be kind of hard to unpack it with just one listening. But, taking into account everything that we've discussed through this series of podcasts, what would be the one parting thought that you really would want to leave people with, particularly the people that haven't heard this stuff, the people that are scared, the people that are hurting? What would you say to them?
I would say, number one, make a conscious choice right now to stay in the vibration of love for all. The moment that you get imbalanced in that, you're going to cause yourself harm and cause the whole collective harm. So stay very balanced there. And while you're there, it's probably also highly going to be helpful for everyone to give homage to yourself and to all of their suffering. So maybe to take time now, instead of engaging in the other energy, to take time to honor all other beings and to honor their sufferings, their life work, and their ancestors' sufferings and everything else, and give some space there. Allow everybody to feel what they're feeling, and hold your peace and hold love for all beings, and make unity consciousness your number one priority right now. Because again, we're passing through a window of time that's very critical for us to make that choice of which direction we're going with our soul. So stay in peace and unity consciousness. And, if you see others around you that you can see they're engaging in that hate energy or falling to that low vibrational war type energy, to try to remind them also that that's not their truth. And there's nothing's going to come from that but suffering. Nothing comes from that but suffering. So, peace is the way, love is the way, and even in different perspectives to one another, that's okay. We have different lives and different experiences, but holding your peace and holding space for them and holding space for all the different people that are having different experiences and different realities, and then staying in peace and not allowing yourself to get sucked into it, and try to remind others to get sucked into it. It's for the collective. It's for all of us and the one soul that is God.
I agree. One sort of what they're telling me to say in response to that is ascension is ascension. Ascension can be looked at as a rising through layers of consciousness. Ascension also could be looked at as stripping off layers of illusion. And once someone strips off layers of illusion that make you think that you're one person and I'm a separate person, and I'm one color and Ellen's a different color, and ants and grass and trees and everything are things that are separate from us. Once you strip off that illusion, everything goes so much more easily. And I believe as a planet, that's where we're headed, at least hopefully some of it.
Yeah. Again, it's a split off. So those that are ascending are going to ascend, and those that aren't are going to go the other direction. But yeah, it's okay that everybody's different and sees things differently to some degree. But if you remember that love is the way, it's the truth and the way. And love doesn't mean you have to be with everything. It doesn't mean you have to have the same experiences. It just means that I can hold space for your pain and your suffering, and I can love you and honor you for it. I don't have to agree with everything you're saying, and I won't. But if you're going to use your pain and suffering to go and hurt another person, you're not in love, and you're going to have consequences that are going to be very not pleasant. So you want to be able to stay balanced in that, and really focus on how to heal through it. If you're getting triggered and bothered by these things, then and you're still feeling the pain in your pain body of the wounds from these events, even if it's from the past or from your ancestors or from even yesterday, really, then you're not in your true spiritual essence, because yesterday isn't even here. Like 5 minutes ago, our conversation that we had, we're not even there anymore. We've already evolved and expanded. So, you want to be able to stay floaty. Floaty is the key, and not attached, and not plugging your circuit into places where you're not going to find joy and bliss and happiness there. There's nothing but suffering there. You keep going there. Then you don't want to suffer anymore, but you keep going there. And then it hurts some more, and you keep going there. And it's like you can't heal that way. That's the wrong direction. and you can honor the space for it and then, release it. But if you keep going there, you're going to keep burning yourself. Touch the stove and then it burns you, and then you run away and it hurts and you lick your wound, and then you come back and you touch the stove again and it burns you again. You can't keep doing that. So we got to learn how to move through it in such a way where we can honor ourselves and each other, and then break the cycles, because that's really where the pain is coming from, is that the cycles keep getting re-perpetuated. But a lot of what's causing perpetuation of those cycles is manipulated behind the scenes from elite beings and from political agendas and from, even entities that are in the fourth dimension, and from all different angles. There are dark entities that are perpetuating this kind of a cycle. And if you buy into it and you go over there and touch that stove again, well, guess what? You're going to get burned. Stop touching it. Go away from there. They're creating these kind of false, pretend, manipulated wars against one another on purpose. If you fall into it and then a bunch of other people follow into it, then you guys are all going to sit and kill each other over something it was never even really your battle. It was all manipulation.
If this is something that people felt like they needed assistance, support, amplification with, they certainly could go to you for that assistance. So take a minute and tell the folks what it is you do, Ellen, how to get in touch with you, all that stuff.
Okay, my name is Ellen Redd, R-E-D-D. You can find me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. The easiest way to find me is on YouTube and Facebook. I'm an Ascension guide. I work with people in exiting the matrix and to heal trauma, distortions, matrix distortions, and through ascending into higher consciousness. I'm also a twin flame coach, a twin flame guide. I've been on the twin flame alchemical journey for over 10 years, and I've been through horrific trauma and grief and gone through a lot of counseling and things like that. So I have all of the light codes active in my Christic Merkaba, and I work with people to help activate their light codes as well so that they can reconnect their 12 DNA strands. So you are a 12 DNA strand being, and you were spliced apart into 2 DNA strands. And so I can help you to reconnect that within yourself. You have to do the work that I can assist you with it. And reach out to me. I'd be happy to help in any of those areas, and energy clearing and any of that type of stuff. So
great. One thing I'll say about Ellen, and most of the people I would think that stumble up on this podcast are some form of light worker, whatever they want to call it. And a lot of light workers can feel the intent, the energy of other people. So I can say I can feel Ellen's energy so strongly because I've known her now for a good while, and we've talked a number of times. Ellen is authentic, and that's a problem that you run into, particularly in the twin flame community, is a lot of inauthenticity. And Ellen is not. She is authentic. Ellen, I would hope that you would kind of say the same thing about me.
Absolutely. I think that you are very well balanced in your energy. I think that you have a lot of keys of your own to contribute to people's healing. And I think, we are a good pair because we both have within us the capacity to move through all of these topics together. So I think the people themselves can hear when they hear us have conversations, they can tell that we're both authentic and that we both have some good knowledge and deep knowledge to share with them. And so, again, anybody that's inclined, feel free to reach out to either one of us.
Yeah. Ellen does something a bit. Ellen's an Ascension coach, and I'm not. I'm really. I help twin flames fight their way or whatever through separation as quickly as possible to get into union with their specific person. And then once that happens, all this wonderful spiritual stuff really makes a difference. I work one-on-one with people over the phone typically. You come to me for Reiki, for readings, for coaching, any of that stuff. Reach out to me on Facebook. Reach out to me on Instagram. I have a YouTube. I'm not as active on YouTube as Ellen, but I am there. I'm easy to track down, and so is Ellen, really. ELLENREDD is Ellen. I'm Elizabeth. That's MELYZABETH, love, LOVE. Reach out to either of us. Reach out to both of us. Any of us would be happy to help you, because when every pair that enters divine union, every pair of twin flames in separation that enter divine union, raise the vibration for everyone, and it makes it that much easier for the next pair to go into union. It's so important. We're ascending from 3D Earth to 5D Earth, and we need every pair of twins to go into union to help with that.
Yes. Yep.
Ellen, thank you so much for getting on the phone with me today. I've always enjoyed talking to you. I love hearing your beautiful voice, and I'm so grateful that you are willing to share this knowledge with the collective free and clear on this podcast.
Absolutely.